And hopefully my sound is good. I'm trying something a little bit different in terms of not using the desktop camera. Trying my laptop one, see if that, I don't know, makes things better. You'll have to let me know, I guess, ultimately at the end. But I want to give you at the front of this block about 15 minutes to take a look at study guides 1 and 2, and I'm offering up part 3. But 1 and 2 to give you some time to kind of answer some of those questions. Again, I'm not going to collect these study guides, but you will be able to use the study guides and your book when we take the test on ordinary people. Okay? So go ahead and about 15 minutes. It's 18 right now, and so that'll take us up to, I think, 33, if my math is correct. Yeah. It is the last day of school for us. No, it's a gold day. Yeah, I don't know why it's kind of messed up, but it is kind of messed up. Sure. We're just taking about 15 minutes to work on study guide stuff. Okay. Whichever one you need. Okay. And again, I'm not going to collect them, but you'll be able to use them and your book when we do the multiple choice. Okay.
What is that?
So it's the last day of school, June 2nd. Just a couple of minutes left. Be thinking about where those questions from the study guide are concerned. What do you need help with? Are there any that you need help with? If I can control my cursor, sure. So question 25 on study guide part 1. Okay, where's the cursor? There it is. Oh, well, that's a philosophy kind of question. Some of us are down on ourselves, and some of us feel like we are not necessary. And at the same time, that we don't feel that we need anybody. But ultimately, we are necessary. There is someone in our lives, someone in your life finds you to be a necessary person. And that person who finds you to be necessary is someone who needs you. I'm going through some difficult circumstances right now in terms of teaching. And I've been talking to my father a lot lately. And in talking to my dad, I'm also recognizing kind of his age. My dad, or actually I am the same age that my father was when his dad passed away. And so and he's going through some health problems. And so I'm kind of confronted at this moment in my life with my father's mortality. And, the reality that, people die. But at the same time, my father is necessary to me. He is an important part of my life. And he sent me a message this morning that was very, very brief, very simple. And all it said was, I am very proud of you and the work that you're doing. And I must have cried in this room for about 15 minutes. And like fought it for, a good couple of minutes. And then finally realized, okay, I need to just allow myself to go ahead and cry. And it was just, this thing. And it, part of it helped me recognize that I am also necessary to him. So, it's it's an odd sort of thing. And so it's, Fook, the question there is, answer that as best as you can. It's a deeply philosophical question, and it gets you to think about, just those sorts of issues. If we look at the pages that they relate to, so turn to 57. And I just realized my daughter has been watching my videos, and so she's going to now watch this and maybe start crying because she does not like to hear about how her grandfather may pass away. Page 57, at the bottom of the page, and so this is when Conrad is meeting with Karen, and so the awkwardness of their whole meeting with one another. He gets the sense that she doesn't want to be there, but she showed up. And so in his own thoughts, he says, come on, Jarrett, don't be a shit. She's a nice girl, and she's right. It's a dangerous business, hanging out with really depressed people. Depression is a contagion in some ways. She's right. It's a dangerous business. How would you like it if some screwed up bastard kept coming around asking you for help, asking you to make him feel necessary? And so part of the issue here is that we can't control how other people feel. And we can't control our own feelings. This is a sticky sort of kind of idea. And so, and I don't know that he's even asking her to make him feel necessary. But he certainly is suffering from this crisis of self, of who he is. We come back to that idea. And then on 58, at the very end, it's who needs you anyway? Who the fuck needs anybody? And so that who needs anybody? Well, we all need people. We thrive on human connection. And I'm a person, and that's coming from somebody who is very shy and introverted, and who has canceled plans to meet with friends. I don't like to do that. I have a hard time meeting with friends, but I also recognize that I need to have friends and I need to meet with those friends. Okay. And so we all need people, and because I think we want to feel necessary, but nobody's going to tell us that we are necessary. We have to find that sense of self-worth on our own. So, Fook, I don't know if that answers your question or not, or begins to help you. I hope it does. Are there other questions on these study guides that you'd like to take a look at? The first or the second one? Okay. Any others? Then, if not, where is it? There we go. We are looking at chapter 19. And so Conrad has finally, he's making some progress. He's taking a step forward, and he's trying to be brave. Has anybody ever seen the movie We Bought a Zoo? A couple of you guys. Anybody at home ever seen the movie We Bought a Zoo? What's the philosophy there? how many minutes of bravery or seconds of bravery? Was it seconds or minutes? You remember? No, it's been a while for you. Ty, do you remember? No. So in We Bought a Zoo, the father figure, played by Matt Damon, who buys the zoo, talks about how, we need just to choose to be brave every now and then in our lives. And we will be surprised in those moments where we choose to be brave, how we can be rewarded. One of those acts of bravery for me was actually meeting my wife. Total blind date. Had no idea what I was getting into, and it wasn't even really a date. It was that we were strangers and we were going to meet, and we decided to meet and spent a lot of time together. For me anyway, I quickly fell in love with her. I have no idea how she felt. Anyway, chapter 19, page 157. What we need, Ray says, is a secretary. I thought we had one. No, a legal secretary. A widow, 60 years old, bad legs, good eyes, willing to work nights, willing to knock herself out for this goddamn job. Gee, how come we can't find her? Cal leans back in his chair. Sounds like a terrific deal for her. He stretches, arms over his head, glancing at his wristwatch. 11:30. This is ridiculous, Ray says, rolling down his sleeves. We are not accountants. We are lawyers, goddammit. Why do we mess with these returns? Why don't we tell them all, look, guys, we advise, that's all. We do not prepare tax returns. We do not do your busy work. What are you laughing at? I'm laughing because we have the same conversation every year. Here, give me those files. I'll take care of them. Nah, just leave them. Sandy will do them in the morning. Sandy, Cal says, is a lousy filer. Their new secretary. Cherry has gone. But the new one has the same fake smile, the same wide-eyed, over-made-up look, and apologetic, fluttering hands. And the file baskets are still overflowing. Business as usual. Ray sighs. She's an improvement, though, huh? 3 letters this week, no errors. She doesn't crack gum in your face when she talks to you. Her name is Sandra Ferrantino. She also has a boyfriend who goes to Northwestern. A bad sign, he told Ray. Ray said, well, that's what happens when you let your partner do the hiring, buddy. They lock up. Descend the smooth and silent elevator to the street. A hollow quiet fills the building, even though it is not empty tonight. There are lights behind many doors on their floor. The building glows as they walk away from it. Want to grab a sandwich? Sure. They walk the 2 blocks to the Carriage Grill, a fancy name for a dull spot with its menu of pale, warmed-over food. A lawyer's hangout. Down the street at the Orrington Hotel are the accountants and data processing men. Just the same as college, when groups of lookalikes had their own spots. Fraternity men, independents, foreign students, med students, art students, the rich, the working. No poor students, just the rich or the working. So, nothing has changed. Beside him, Ray complains over his coffee cup. Said I gave her a raw deal. I was the villain because I over-expected. I was a narrow-minded, arrogant chauvinist. Her exact words. Christ, I ask you, is it chauvinistic to expect 6 hours of work out of somebody when you're paying for 8? Cherry? She told you all that? She wrote it in a letter addressed to me. You were innocent. I'm not sure why. I suppose, Cal says, because I left it up to you to handle it. I'm sorry. I know I did that to you. I do that to you. Cop out. I never know how to tell somebody, hey, you're just not making it. I don't know why. Ray shakes his head. No problem, Cal. I don't mind that. It's just, well, I like to be let in on what's happening with you off and on, With me? What do you mean? You haven't been around the last couple of months, that's all. Around? What are you talking about? Jesus, Cal, I've known you for over 20 years. You think I can't tell when something's wrong? He looks down into his cup. You're not yourself. I'm not myself, he says. Okay, Howard, who am I then? But Ray doesn't answer. We're on the middle of 159. But Ray doesn't answer. The waiter approaches with their corned beef sandwiches. He refills their coffee cups. What do you want me to do? Cal says. Stop by your office, hum a few bars from The Sound of Music every day? Everything's fine, Ray. Nothing to worry about. Why are you worrying then? He laughs. I'm not. In fact, I've been thinking about taking a couple of days off in March to play in the Lawyers Tournament in Dallas. Well, great. Why don't you do it? The middle of the month? I'll be leaving you with all this crap? Don't be dumb. I'd do it to you in a minute. He takes a bite of his sandwich. Beth going with you? Probably, yeah. We'll stay with her brother and his wife. They have a place in Richardson. I think that's good, Ray says. I think it'd do you both good to get away for a few days. That's the answer. Now, this is interesting. That's the answer. Getting away is the answer. And what I want you to be thinking about here is what all of these characters seem to be searching for, right? All of these characters seem to be searching for the answer. And the mayflies don't even have to ask the question, right? Go back to page 4. Take a look at page 4. Mayflies don't have to ask the question because they already know the answer. That is a lot of life, is questions and answers. And so in this particular moment, getting away is the answer. How many of you think that getting away is actually the answer? Katie, you think so? Okay. Getting away, is that the answer? What might be the problem with getting away? Why would it not be the answer? Yeah.
You're running away from the problem. It's still going to be there.
The problem will still be there when you get back. That's the catch, right? And we're learning a little bit more, as if, we didn't know this already, about Cal. Cal did not participate in the firing of Cherry. She was a terrible secretary. She was awful. But Cal does not engage with that firing, with that release of her. How come? What kind of person is Cal? And it's interesting. He's a tax attorney. Sam, do you have an idea? That's exactly right. So ordinarily, we think of attorneys as someone who's going to get into court and make an argument. A tax attorney does not have to see the inside of a courtroom. Cal is non-confrontational. Cal doesn't confront. And so this problem could go on and on and on until, he's being the fence sitter that he is, that we looked at last time, right? He told Dr. Berger, I prefer to sit on the fence. That is my preference. So we'll see kind of how this trip plays out for them. The answer to what? Life reduced to the simplest of terms, formulas. Get away for a while, everything works out for the best. Look, I'm sorry, Ray said. It's none of my business, but you worry too much. You've been on the rack about him long enough. It's a habit now. You got to let go sometime, buddy. Ray, I'm not on the rack about him. Thing is, Ray says, in another year, he'll be gone, off to Michigan or Harvard or wherever the hell he gets in his head he wants to go. Maybe he'll decide to take a tour of Europe for a year, not even go to school. Who knows? How come all of a sudden you know so much about him? I don't. Look, I'm giving you the benefit of my experience. Thanks, he says dryly. I mean, with Valerie, it's more than her living away from home. She's gone, Cal. She's got her own life, her own friends. She breezes in for a few days of vacation. Maybe girls are different, I don't know. Or maybe she was too aware of the stuff that happened. I mean, between Nance and me, but they leave, Cal. And all that worrying doesn't amount to a hill of crap, just wasted energy. I'm not worried about Con, he says. Who then? Is it Beth? Is something wrong between Beth and you? No. You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. He turns. Ray is wearing an uncomfortable look. Oh, I hate it when the friend knows more than you know. Well, you gave me some advice a long time ago on that business with Nancy, and you know what that lets you in for, don't you? Getting it all back someday, whether you want it or not. So how do you want it? He gives a snort of laughter. I don't want it? No mistaking the look of discomfort now. Ray has something on his mind. Listen, Cal, Nance and Beth had lunch together last week. He breaks off, staring down into his coffee cup. Next time, Cal says, try for more directness. Make an appointment. What are you supposed to tell me? I'm not supposed to tell you anything, Ray says unhappily. I'm just telling you. They had lunch together. Beth is pretty upset. She thinks you're out of focus. She says you're obsessed with Con's problems. You can't think about anything else. Well, that's ridiculous, he snaps. She can't think about them at all. Now, what does that say to you? It says nobody's normal. There it is again. Nobody's normal. Thanks. I'm used to writing by hand. Nobody's normal. What else do you write with? What's the cover? What's the title of this book? Ordinary People. Nobody's normal. Normal is another word for ordinary. Nobody's normal. We've all got our stuff. Nobody's got it together. Nobody, not anybody in this frickin' world. Look, I'm sure as hell not setting myself up as some example, Cal. I just didn't know if you knew how she felt. I know. He feels sorry for Ray. This is not a pleasant role, counselor. He remembers that from 7 years ago. Wants to tell him he sympathizes. Wants to ask, how are things with you and Nancy now? How would you describe your marriage in terms of knowing each other, in terms of being friends, of understanding that hopelessly intricate network of clash and resolution that has been woven over the last 20 years? Two separate, distinct personalities, not separate at all, but inextricably bound, soul and body and mind to each other. How did we get so far apart so fast? How could she believe that? Is it true? She believes it, or she never would have said it to Nancy. And even saying it is unlike her. She's never given so much of herself away. God, he is wandering tonight, his mind dealing in irrelevance. It is always this way when he's overtired. Listen, forget it, will you? Ray takes a swallow of his coffee. None of our business anyway, and I'm feeling very existential tonight. People are born, then they die. In between, they perform a lot of pathetic and more or less meaningless actions. Ray, Jesus, you don't believe that? Oh yeah, when I'm sober, I believe it a lot. He looks at Cal. How about you? What do you believe, buddy? I believe I'll go to Dallas, Cal says. Play some golf, maybe get blind one night with my crazy brother-in-law and raise hell. Do it, Ray says. My blessings. On the subject of losing people, Ray is bitter. So much of the worrying you do, he tells Cal, is about losing your kids. And in the end, you lose them anyway. So what's the point? He feels he has lost Valerie forever. But things change. Situations change. She could come back. She probably will someday through a husband, some children. The fear behind the fear of losing people is that there might have been something you could have done to prevent it. Last Christmas, they had lost Con in Florida at Miami International. Standing in the underground garage, the dirt and the oppressive heat surrounding them, the rental convertible parked at the curb, his heart had jolted in terror as he waited. Conrad had disappeared when they deplaned. He was gone for 40 minutes, while Calvin Jarrett, world traveler, champion fence sitter, had waited, finally getting hold of the airport police. How do you explain losing a 16-year-old in an airport? And as they were taking down a description, he had suddenly appeared, walking toward them from the escalator and through the glass exit doors. He had gone to look for a men's room. He had gotten lost. End of explanation. And then had come the telephone call from Howard 2 days later. They'd gone to play golf. They had left him on the beach with some kids he had met down there. Nice. He had found some friends. And after they left, he had gone upstairs to the room, called Lake Forest to ask if his grandfather remembered how many strings of lights he and Buck had put on the outdoor tree in front of their house last year. The telephone had been ringing when they walked in. Howard was frantic. Cal, don't do that again. Don't leave him alone down there. Something's wrong. I know it. You better have a talk with him. And so he had. He went immediately next door to the connecting room, and Conrad was lying on the bed in his bathing suit, reading a magazine, calm and relaxed. Yes, everything was fine. Yes, he had called them to wish them a Merry Christmas. Why? And for some reason, he had bought that too. Even though, like a single frame of film, flicked on the mind screen and off, it had been there that day. The knowledge of the thing that he would do to himself someday. Out of focus, she said. Obsessed. Maybe she's right. Maybe he is. One thing for sure, Ray is not right. Life is not a series of pathetic, meaningless actions. Some of them are so far from pathetic, so far from meaningless, as to be beyond reason. Maybe beyond forgiveness. Now, this is something that I want you to keep in mind. He did say back on 146 and 147, as he was talking to Berger, that all life is accident. All life is accident. But then finally, this last phrase, that last sentence, some actions are so far from pathetic, so far from meaningless, as to be beyond reason, maybe beyond forgiveness. I want you to remember that people make mistakes. It is never more important to recognize that people make mistakes. People have accidents. Think about Troy Maxson. People make mistakes. And we've got to figure out when those mistakes occur, what does forgiveness look like? What does forgiveness look like? So, when we make the mistake, we've got to forgive ourselves if we are the one who made the mistake, or if someone has made a mistake and harmed us. In order to be able to kind of move forward, we've got to figure out what forgiveness looks like. And so we can look at Troy. Troy is unable to forgive himself, right? I think Troy was totally unable to forgive himself. And I suspect that he drinks himself to death. He falls into alcoholism. Yeah, Sam? For having the affair. For betraying his own vision of who he was. In much the same way that John Proctor does. John Proctor does that as well. He doesn't destroy himself, but John Proctor violates his own perception of who he is. Okay? So we've got to figure out how to forgive ourselves for our own mistakes and how to forgive other people who we want to continue to have in our lives. Sometimes we need to cut those people loose, especially if they're, if they aren't necessarily mistakes. We've got to be able to evaluate whether or not someone's harm upon us, was it a mistake or was that intentional? Did you do that on purpose? and somebody who continues to harm us over and over and over again, we need to cut those people loose. And figure out a way that, we can live our lives without those individuals in order to be able to be. So he looks around the dim interior at the knots of heads, nodding purple flowers in the dark. How about it? Illusion versus reality. All those in favor, he could pull them, but they're not representative. They're a bunch of hotshot lawyers. What do they know? Chapter 20. Standing on the front porch of her house, he nervously shoves his hands in his pockets, pulls them out again. Too casual. Wouldn't want her mother to get the wrong impression. He takes a quick glance at his watch. 8:30. He's right on time. Her mother is strict, she says. Maybe she has a rule about her not being out after midnight. He hopes so. A series of 5-minute telephone calls over a 2-week period does not establish much precedent for the evening that now stretches lengthily ahead. Too long between the asking and the actual event, like having to think in advance about going to the dentist. But she'd been busy that first Saturday, and Friday nights she works. What's the problem? No problem. He's in great shape for the event. He's just been cut down to once a week by his analyst. He finds on waking each morning no terrible urgency to escape his thoughts. They are harmless. They concern a report he has to write, a section of tenor melody he's learning, small goals to purify his days. That dentist thing, what do you think of that? Do you get that? Do you get that feeling? How many of you get that feeling about going to the dentist? Some people love going to the dentist, but that's not anything that I can relate to personally. What's that? What's that? What did you say?
Why would somebody want to go to the dentist?
Oh, okay. You think somebody should be institutionalized for liking the dentist?
Yeah.
Well, and some people, keep in mind, become hygienists on purpose, and dentists themselves on purpose. Former student of mine is a dentist. So, yeah, I can't imagine working on somebody else's mouth. I don't even like flossing, but I've started. I'm getting a little bit better. I've been working on it. So anyway, and then the anxiousness of a first date. How many of you relate to that? Anxiousness of a first date? Okay. Berger yesterday had grinned lecherously at him over a sugar donut. Psychiatry has its advantages. I expect to hear all about it on Tuesday. He had laughed. Yeah, well, I didn't hear all about how it went with my father, did I? I've told you before, kiddo, I'm the doctor, you're the patient. Sooner or later, all you cats start pulling out of line. What did he want anyway? He wanted, Berger said, the name of a good allergist. Listen, you want me to tell you what he wanted? He had thought it over briefly. Decided he didn't want that after all. Respect for privacy was what he wanted. He had let it drop. And now he's on a Tuesday-only schedule. Gee, coach, I hope I make it, he had said on his way out the door. Berger had sighed, and I just ordered a couch. How am I going to pay for it? With a start, he realizes he has forgotten to ring the doorbell. Nice beginning, Jarrett. He rings, and the door is opened seconds later by a pleasant-faced woman with red hair, a wide smile. Her eyes are on a level with his. She's much taller than Janine. Hi, come on in. You're Conrad, right? I'm Jen's mother. She ushers him into the small, tidy living room where a small boy sits, cross-legged on the couch, watching television. Mike, this is a friend of Jen's. Conrad, she looks at him. Jarrett, he supplies. Hi, Mike. Hi. The eyes do not move from the screen. Sit down. Jen just got home from work. They asked her to stay late tonight. Let's see now. You're new here, aren't you? Me? No. You mean to the city? No, we've lived here for about 10 years. Oh, she's puzzled. Aren't you the one that works at the music store in Lake Bluff? No, he smiles. Well, then, did she meet you at the Evanston Symphony concert? He shakes his head, wishing he could help her. How many are there anyway? I go to Lake Forest, he says. I give her a ride home from school once. Oh, you're the tenor, she says. I can't hear the TV, Mike says. You guys are talking too loud. Relieved that she's nailed him down at last, she feels free to go on with the more serious motherly questions. Where does he live? What does his father do? Is that civil or criminal? What grade is he in? A junior. And he's how old? 18? He endures them in an agonizing fit of nervousness. He couldn't even think of the words tax attorney. Almost forgot the name of his own street. As for his age, let her think he's stupid. It is infinitely preferable to whatever else she might discover about him. He gazes about the room. Plants everywhere, on tables, in the windows, in corners. One of them, a tall, slender tree, supports huge fantail leaves and is nearly touching the ceiling. You must like plants, he says. Oh, brilliant, Jarrett, brilliant. She laughs. Well, they make nice pets. And they don't bark or jump up on you and tear your stockings. She jumps up herself. I'll just hurry her along. He's left with the small boy, who sits, scratching his leg, glancing over at him appraisingly. He's blond and thin. His voice is a low rasp. I'm going to take guitar lessons. Are you? Good, Conrad says politely. But I might take karate instead. 10 lessons for $4 after school at the community house. Sounds great. He goes back to the TV, chewing a corner of his lip. The room is warm. Conrad takes off his jacket, holds it across his knees. I'll probably have to take karate, Mike says, because I don't got a guitar. You got a karate? Conrad asks. Huh? He laughs. Nothing, just a dumb joke. What's your name? Conrad. You look just like the guy who was here last Saturday. Yeah? What was his name? I forget. There's too many. Janine appears in the doorway. Behind her, from the end of the hall, the command is issued. Don't be late. I won't. She grabs her coat from the closet on their way out. Settled beside him in the car, she sighs. I heard her grilling you. I'm sorry. I tried to hurry. That's okay. They drive in silence for a few minutes. I'd better warn you now, she says. I'm a horrible bowler. That's okay. Well, it's not, really. You haven't seen me. Look, we don't have to go bowling if you'd rather not. She glances quickly at him. No, I'll go if you want. What would you rather do? She shrugs. Do you want to go out at all? He asks. Do you? I asked you, didn't I? You didn't talk to me all week in choir. I thought you might have changed your mind. I haven't changed my mind. Have you? Abruptly, she laughs. This is dumb. I haven't changed my mind. I want to go, but I just hate to go and do something that'll make me look silly. You won't look silly, he promises her. I'm a great teacher. You'll look like you belong to a league in 20 minutes, okay? Okay. And it's all right after that. She's right. She's a lousy bowler, but a good listener, a quick learner. He gives her all the tips he can, and she absorbs them easily, trying very hard. And besides, she looks terrific up there, no matter what happens to the ball. He notices that she's wearing the blue skirt, the one she wore the first day he saw her at school. And he notices how she sits with her legs tucked back, half on the seat, her hair a smooth river of silk. You were a natural, he tells her, across the table at McDonald's afterward. Oh, sure. I'm also a Gemini, so be careful. Why? Because we're two-faced and unpredictable. And what are you? January 10th? Capricorn. Good. That's a good sign. Is it? Sure. Dutiful, responsible, serious, capable, boring. She grins. Late bloomers. He laughs. For sure. He looks around at the people. Begins to play an old game. Instant history. See that guy there? Divorced. That's his daughter with him. He gets to see her once a week. He'd like to take her someplace fancy. Diana's, the red carpet. She only likes McDonald's. Every week they come here for dinner. That's not her daddy, Janine says. Sugar daddy, maybe. Okay, my turn. There's a couple. It's their first date. She's afraid of getting fat, so she just has a burger, no roll, and a cup of coffee. But he's not, so he has 2 Big Macs. She rolls her eyes. What a pig. And he's been dying to ask her out. For months, he put it off. Finally, he got up his nerve. He called her on the phone and said, Say, I was wondering, she giggles. Oh, all right, he mimics, her soft soprano. And what did she say? Who, me? On a date? With you? Well, I was shocked, she says. You took long enough. I thought I was pretty swift. September to February is swift. On the way home, he allows his hand to slide across the seat, encounter hers, and hold it lightly while she talks about her parents' divorce, about her father, who lives in Akron and manages a department store, about her mother, who was a nurse at a small private hospital in Glenview. My uncle's on the staff there, she says. He helped her to get the job. That's why we came here. There were some other reasons, too, but she does not elaborate. They pass the library on their way to her house. It sits, hunched, waiting for him. So many things he does not know. His body, under touch from all stimulation tonight, leans toward it, yearning. In front of her house, they talk some more, and he smooths his palm around and around the steering wheel, staring out at the streetlight, diffusing the yellow bloom of its rays through the windshield. Well, what do you think? He asks. Did this work out okay? You want to try it again? Sure. So they set up the following Saturday night, a returned engagement. And as casually as the earth one day spun itself loose from the sun and off into whirling space, he kisses her. His hands on her shoulders, her mouth under his, cool and firm, and an unexpected sensation then, causing his groin to swell with warmth, her hand at the back of his neck. Marvelous accident. Did he discover her in her blue skirt that day last September in Lazenby's car? If so, Berger is right. The body doesn't lie. He says against her cheek, I'll call you tomorrow, okay? Okay, she whispers. Her breath is warm against his ear. 2 phone calls in 1 week. You are swifter than I thought. So she's liked him from the moment she met him. Isn't that sweet? Well, do we know the people that we know? Does that question even make sense? Do we know the people that we know? How well do we know the people that we know? I've been married for 21 years in July, and my wife remains a tremendous mystery to me. I know that there are things that I do not know about her. And ultimately, there are probably things that she doesn't know about me. And my children, I mean, I know that now that they're going to school, they've got lives that I could not even begin to understand. Yet I've known them the entirety of their life. And they've known me all their lives. And there are things that they are just now beginning to discover about me. Like how I got a scar on my forehead. I can't even remember which side it's on. Because I fell out of bed. So just little things. The people that we know, even some of the people that we know, and know well, there are things that we don't know about them. Just as, any rando in the hallway, we don't know what those people might be going through on any given day. And I think it's important to remember that. We don't know really anybody but ourselves. Okay? Chapter 21. She looks up from the checks she's writing at her desk in the bedroom. When would we go? March 13th, it's a Friday? Oh, on Friday the 13th. Is that of significance? I wonder. Tournament starts on Saturday, runs until Monday, 16th. All right, she puts down her pen. Would we stay with Ward and Audrey? If you like, I'll write to them. Good. Not a trip to Europe, but he can do this for her. Take her to visit her brother. Ward Butler is big and loud, nothing like his sister in looks or temperament. Married a woman just like himself. Easy people to like and to be with. And she is as close to Ward as she is to anybody. As close as she is to me. He wanders from the bedroom to the family room downstairs. Makes himself a drink at the bar. A quiet Saturday night for a change. Conrad is out for the evening. He didn't say where, only that he wouldn't be late. He flips idly through a stack of record albums on the stereo. Pulls out a London Symphony by Vaughan Williams. The only symphony with which he has ever become familiar. He remembers the music lit course Beth was taking when they first met. All those inane lyrics they put to the main themes to help her study for the exams. The power of suggestion. That particular symphony does make him think of Europe, although not London specifically, just all the places they've been. Spain, Toledo, with its streets narrower than any alleys he's seen, and those outdoor stalls with seafood, fresh fruits, hand-knitted shawls, hand-tooled leather belts, those delicate carvings on the handles of swords and knives. What was it called? God, his memory is failing again. Senility setting in. The smell of boxwood, Granada. In the monastery where they stayed, Parador de San Francisco. The gardens were laid out so neatly, with fountains and stone benches and stones inlaid on the walkways, so beautiful and unreal. And yet, with the unreality, and considering the timing of it, Khan still in the hospital, Jordan dead less than a year, they had been happy there. Away from home, away from all of it. Everything seemed orderly and safe. Safety and order. Definitely the priorities of his life. He is not a man inclined toward risk. There. A definition at last. I'm a man who believes in safety. So Sam, Cal does not confront. Okay? You know, somebody to be safe, to play things safe. Christ, is that all? Is that why decisions are so difficult? No, he would have classed Arnold Bacon as a man who believed in order and safety. Yet Arnold had no trouble with decisions. Arnold had written him off without hesitation when he'd married Beth. He had been reevaluated, found wanting. The subsidy was withdrawn, the offer of a future partnership in Arnold's firm disappearing with it. It seemed at the time a terrible misunderstanding. No way to put it right, not with telephone calls or letters after the fact. And it was not the withdrawal of the subsidy. That meant nothing. The withdrawal of friendship. That was what had crushed him. After 5 years of looking up to someone, of thinking of him as a father. You had a goal once, Arnold told him over the telephone. You were going to be the best tax attorney in the state, remember? Sure. And once I wanted to be a fireman. Then I met you. He had been angry then, but he hadn't really meant that his goals had changed. And in vain, he argued that a man can have more than one goal at a time, that he had not abandoned one for the other. He just no longer wanted to think of himself as the kid from the evangelical home. He wanted a family, a wife, people to share his goals with him. Then you've made a bad choice, Bacon observed. She is not a sharer, Calvin. It's you who will end up doing all the sharing. That is ominous. That's pretty ominous, wouldn't you say? And how does somebody else manage to get that notion, that idea? How is somebody else able to see that? And that's, boy, it's a special skill. Bitterness talking. He had understood that. There had been, on contact, instant hatred between Arnold and Beth. She had referred to him after the very first meeting as Arnold Fagin, had never missed an opportunity to point out the ways that Arnold worked to control him. Does anybody get that reference? Arnold Fagin? It's an illusion. No. Has anybody ever heard of Fagin before? Have any of you ever seen like Oliver and Company? No? Yeah. Have any of you ever seen Oliver or read Oliver Twist? Okay. Fagin's the bad guy. Manipulative with orphans. To own him, she said. Between those two whom he loved, he had tried to wedge his own wants, his own needs, sitting nervously on the fence. It hadn't worked. Recognizing that he had to choose one or the other. His eyes blur suddenly and he blinks back tears, furious at himself. Since that visit with Berger, all manner of internal wheels have been set in motion, heaving up thoughts he has not encountered in years. Old stuff. Too late to do anything about it. And what could he have done? Gone to his funeral? What for? To pay his respects to a man who would have nothing to do with him for the last 15 years or so of his life? No. All over. It had not been him, anyway, who made the decision. It had been Arnold. So maybe Beth had been right. Maybe people did use other people according to their own needs. It had not felt like ownership to him, but afterward, what else could he call it? He had not lived up to his end of the bargain. Therefore, Arnold had cut him loose, gotten rid of him. People use people according to their own needs, or don't use them. When a primary need is one of safety, is that why he's never gotten involved with a secretary, a girl in a bar, a client, a friend's wife? Is it because he loves her, or because he's afraid? Affairs. They are common knowledge, discussed just as they say in the locker rooms of the clubs he has belonged to. Women everywhere, hundreds of opportunities, thousands of attractions. Then why not him? The closest he has ever come was 10 years ago. A woman lawyer he knew, Molly Davis. Her client and his were considering a private merger. They had worked together on it for several weeks, and he felt the vibrations. They could have worked out a private merger of their own. So why didn't they? What had happened? So long ago, it's hard to remember. It seems that he had quietly and simply one day turned it off before it had gotten started. Priorities again, safety and order. Infidelity is a dangerous business. People get hurt, and she does not forgive. She never forgave Arnold for what? For simply being Arnold. No, too easy, pushing it off on her. Face it, you are not a hungry man, sexually or otherwise. You were content. You never looked. We talked about that contentment last time, I think, and I think 2 classes ago even. But in any case, she would not have forgiven him. They had discussed it once after Ray and Nancy. So a key piece of characterization again for Beth. She does not forgive. She does not forgive. If she does not forgive, what do you suppose her thoughts are on mistakes? Someone who doesn't forgive, how would they define a mistake? Any thoughts on that? Possibilities? Yeah. Okay. Or somebody who doesn't forgive. Just in general. Do they believe in mistakes? Maybe not. That it's not a mistake, that it's a choice. So something to think about, to keep in mind. And Conrad and Beth are actually very similar personalities in a lot of ways. In any case, she would not have forgiven him. They had discussed it once after Ray and Nancy. If I were her, she had said, I would never come back. Not for a house in Glencoe, not for the children, not for anything. It is too humiliating. Wow. She does not forgive. This. And there's actually a link between those two concepts, forgiveness and humiliation. If we look at where humiliation comes from, how many of you have been humiliated? Who's been humiliated? I know I have. And that was a big part of why I actually didn't go up to the ex-girlfriend when I saw her at the miniature golf place. Because of the humiliation that I felt. Could not do it. And that's why I wasn't able to tell my wife right away. There was a sense of humiliation. What's the link between humiliation and forgiveness? Okay. Okay. I have no idea. No idea. Yeah, that's a very real possibility. Yeah, sure. Sam? Go ahead. So say that again.
Acceptance.
What about it?
Like I feel like it's required because you gotta accept that you're in the wrong to like allow somebody to be
Okay.
and then to get over like the stage of
Okay. So the accepting of a wrong. What's do you have a sense of what the key word is in here within that word that would link the two? That links the two. Yeah. No, within the word itself. It's actually in there, believe it or not. Very close. Close. Yeah. Well, that too, which is interesting. So we've got, within this word, human is actually linked to it. Okay. But there's a word in there, another word in there. Everybody at home see it? Not that you can necessarily see it. So I accidentally touched the wrong part of the screen, and then I came in and muted. That's great. Thanks. Scared me. Do you see the word that's linked in there? Humiliating and forgiveness, or humility and forgiveness. Humility is a key part of it. Human, humility, something else. Nobody sees it? No. Everybody at home? 1 second, one chance. Humble. What? We have to humble ourselves to forgive someone. In order to forgive someone or to forgive ourselves, we have to humble ourselves. Okay? Keep in mind also, in terms of Beth, It is too humiliating. Think about that link between humiliation and image. And she's all about appearances, right? It is too humiliating. Why? She loves him. What does it matter? It matters that we know about it, she said. Well, suppose nobody knew about it. Then would it be humiliating? I would know, she said, and you would know. That's enough. A thrill of fear had touched him. Is it that some people are not given a capacity for forgiveness? Just as some people are cheated out of beauty by a pointed nose or not allowed the adequate amount of brain matter? It is not in her nature to forgive. No, that's absurd. Again, a reducing of the complicated dimensions of life to a formula that is more simple than sensible. It comes from too much thinking, which both he and his son do. He rises in disgust, setting his glass down on the bar. Too much thinking merely causes him to feel vaguely that he is on the point of learning something, only to have the circuits blocked and the answers inaccessible. So we hit our goal of getting through to chapter 21 at the very least. Anybody thoughts or questions right now? Still pretty tense in terms of what's going on between these characters. How many of you guys are going to prom? Anybody going to prom? Yeah. Okay. Anybody at home going to prom? Be safe. Okay. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you, folks at home. You're free to go.
You have to have like a date or maybe.
Exactly.
I would not go alone.
No, I don't know.